Wednesday, Wednesday, so good to me. I know those aren't the lyrics to the song, but I don't know, couldn't think of another way to do a cold open, as they call it, into this podcast. So it's Wednesday, keeping it regular, like my bells, with the podcast. This terrible, mildly carb-related. Well, it's all, when I say mildly carb-related, it's all it's about, really, isn't it? How is everyone? Hope you're well after the rambunctious weekend we had here in Ireland from Paddy's Day and then winning the Grand Slam. Come on, Ireland. I drank like a fish on Friday, St. Patrick's Day. I went into the city centre, which was chaos. Every single pub was absolutely jammed to the rafters, but it was good crack. Started drinking at 12 p.m. even. So I was home and all in bed by about 8:30. Some other of my cohorts were getting into the narcs, which is not my bag, pun intended. So I'd had my feed of points. I thought, you know what, this will only go one way, and I don't want to be part of it. So I went home and I had a good night's sleep, and I woke up Saturday not feeling too bad, to be honest. So I think I made the right decision. And then sure, Saturday was the rugby, and drank, watching that. And then I went to a pop concert on the Sunday evening, and I drank at that. And then I woke up for work on Monday going, oh my God, I'm no longer 22 years old. What am I doing? I can't do this. But I've recovered since. It's fine. It's now Wednesday, and I can't wait to go drinking again this weekend. Hope you all had a lovely Paddy's weekend anyway. It's a fun time of year. Let's celebrate Christianity being brought to Ireland and the fictional snakes being driven out by let's celebrate our culture by getting absolutely hammered, because that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? I'm rambling. So my motoring week, pretty quiet week, motoring related week for me. I went out on my bicycle yesterday for the first time in a while. I wouldn't say I'm a keen cyclist. I'm not one of these people who wears lycra and goes baiting up mountains, but I've done a lot of cycling over the years. I've used it as a commuting tool for quite a while, for places where it's just not. I prefer driving as a hobby. If I need to get somewhere, I think, especially within an urban environment, the bicycle's not a bad option. But just between this and the third, I've been doing an awful lot over the last 6 months or so. So it was a nice afternoon yesterday. I said I'd get out on my bicycle, and I said I'll cycle from my place into the city centre, buzz around, you never know, might see some cars and buzz out. And I almost forgot, my God, driving in Dublin, or cycling in Dublin, you really do take your life into your own hands. The people are so oblivious, cyclists. Cyclists are also quite oblivious and a bit obnoxious, I will admit. So one thing is that I am one of all three of the modes of transport. I walk, I cycle, and I drive, obviously. So I like to think I can bring elements of all those three modes of transport. Fucking hell. You can see I really must stop doing this straight after work and after exercising. And I'm just tired now and rambling and making no sense. But anyway, definitely, there are good and bad amongst all. But the only thing is the bad always stand out. Because if someone's a good cyclist or a good driver, you just tend not to notice. But the bad people, they stand out. And I was out for maybe 2.5 hours yesterday, and I think I nearly got hit by 4 or 5 cars. The most noticeable one was, I don't like to judge books by a cover, but it was a first generation Cayenne Turbo in rough enough condition with black tinted windows. And I'm cycling up a barriered cycle lane, the one that goes up along, I suppose, what do you call it, Camden Street, Wicklow Street, just near Whelan's there, in Dublin. If you're not familiar with Dublin, just Google it. And I'm cycling along, and this guy just turns in over the cycle path right in front of me. Now, luckily, my brakes work, so I was able to stop, but he just didn't see I was there at all. And there's big wing mirrors on those Cayennes. That happened several times. That was just the worst of the bunch. But yeah, look, just keep an eye out for cyclist people. I know a lot of them seem like they're dickheads, and some of them are, but most of them aren't. So just keep an eye out, because we can all share the roads. We can all live together. Going back to Paddy's Day, actually, one of my friends who I went boozing with, I called into his house because he lives just off the Leeson Street Bridge. Before we went out for our first few pints, and he recently got let go from his job, so he thought the best thing to do was to invest in a race sim. Nothing massively fancy, just the seat, the pedals, the force feedback steering wheel, and then the screen and the little PC to run a Assetto Corsa. So I gave that a go before we went out. I could see how that could get incredibly addictive, chasing lap times. So it's more realistic than, say, a Gran Turismo. But I don't have a lot of real life track experience, but I don't know. I personally think there's only so much you could get from a sim, because you just don't get this. One, obviously it's not in 3 dimensions, and two, I think the actual sensations of being in a car and actually moving and braking. I'm not saying it's easier, but I think I'd find it personally easier to get my head around actually being in a race car on a track than trying to go fast in a simulator, because there's just not enough sensations coming through to make accurate judgments, I think. Now, don't get me wrong, my first few laps were terrible, and I started steadily improving. I was only using it for about half an hour or so, but as I said, I could see how it could get very addictive. So that's why I'm not and haven't bought one, because I would absolutely turn into a hermit, and before I knew it, I'd be 56 years old and still sitting in my race sim trying to better my lap time around the Nordschleife. But yeah, good fun. If you lose your job, either do or don't buy a race sim. My friend did. He loves it, but he also does need to find a job. And there's one small note, one car I did notice when I was out on my bicycle trip. I saw a Clio RS, or as it was badged, being a Japanese import, a Renault Leticia RS. It was the trophy. And to be honest, only when I was right beside it that I heard a little burble from the exhaust did I notice it actually was a Clio RS, because it was the last current generation, whatever that one was called, the one with the 1.6 turbo and only the dual clutch transmission. And it's a bit more, I suppose it's kind of because you can buy any run-of-the-mill car now with the fancy trinkets, the wheels and the body kits, that you don't really notice the performance ones, which I suppose is a good and a bad thing. But yeah, just I'm sure it's a great car, and I'd love any of the older RS Renault products, although they're all getting fucking very expensive and thin on the ground, as with everything. But yeah, that one of those though, don't get me wrong, if you gave it to me, I'm sure it'd be brilliant, but there's just no appeal. Like that generation of Clio, I quite like. I think it's a good looking car, but the fast one, no, couldn't care less. Couldn't put my money into one. Motoring news, as we move on to, as is the normal way of things. Do you see that MST crowd? Those lads who, I'm sure you've seen videos on the internet. Johnny Smith's done a couple with them. They make new Mark 1 and Mark 2 Escort body shells, and then you can go simple, or you can go balls out, Millington race spec engine, dual clutch gearbox, full on rally car essentially. Those lads, you know what I'm talking about. But they just announced that they're going to start doing new shells for the Metro 6R4, and it's going to be powered by the Audi V6 turbo V6 that's in the S4, S6. Anyway, one of the fruity enough. Obviously, they'll tinker with it, but that'll be a cool thing. The Metro 6R4, although not the most successful of the Group B rally cars, there's just something very cool about it. And having a new one, like, don't be honest, it's easily going to be a 6-figure car, but try and find a genuine Metro 6R4 for anything less than 300 grand minimum. I'd say you'd want for one of them now, if not more. But yeah, it'd be cool to see one of those. Ineos Grenadier, they've released their pickup. Where do I sit with the Ineos Grenadier? I don't hate it. I don't hate it as much as I wouldn't own an old Defender, because I don't see the point in having one unless you actually live on a farm. They've just become fashion accessories, and all Defenders are terrible to drive on the road. But at least the Grenadier and like the new Defender is just a big obnoxious piece of shit. It's too big, and again, bought by people who will never ever take them off road. Again, both are very capable, don't get me wrong, and if I needed an off-road vehicle, I'd maybe consider, but the Grenadier at least sits in the middle. It has the looks of a Defender, and then at least some of the modern accoutrement that the old Defender doesn't have, but it's not as big and as ostentatious as the new Defender. So yeah, if you had to have one, yeah, sure. Was it my cup of tea? No. But anyway, there's a pickup version now. Just thought I'd throw it in there. Ferrari released the Spider version of the Roma, which looks pretty terrible. I like the coupe Roma. I think it's a nice. Now it's very spec dependent, but I think it's a nice. Of all the modern Ferraris, it's quite interesting. But the Spider redesign, they haven't. The back end is just fat and blobby, and it's a bit of a mess. And they kind of put wind deflector humps where the roof falls in. Look it up. It's terrible. With the new cars. Ford have announced that the Capri name is coming back, and it's going to be an EV. Speaking of Ford EVs as well, though, they brought out the Explorer EV. So the Ford Explorer, as we know it, big SUV from back in the day, it's coming back now. Obviously, again as an SUV, but it's going to be an EV. I saw this news on. I get the Autocar news email. I think it must come once a day. I very rarely pay attention to it, but the headline was Ford release first EV, the Explorer. And I was like, wouldn't the Mach-E be Ford's first EV? I know it's not technically badged as a Ford, but it's a Ford. It's a Ford Mach-E, Mustang, whatever the fuck. It's a Ford. But anyway, yeah, another unexciting news. And Westfield is coming back. Westfield went into liquidation in 2022. Someone bought them, and they're going to start production again early next year. They'll have two rivals to the Caterhams we know and love. So it'll be a Lotus 7-esque sports car. They haven't mentioned what engines they're going to be using. They also do remakes of 356 Speedsters. And then I think 550 Spiders as well. Porsche's obviously not here, but they're obviously not badged as that because Porsche would shoot them. They're going to bring back those as well. I think they're going to be EV, and it's all very early days yet, but the brand is back. Buy a Westfield if you don't want a Caterham, I guess. Yeah. Dacia have confirmed they're going to start making the Bigster. Clues in the name. It's going to be a big SUV, which is sad because I kind of like the fact that Dacia, whatever you want to call it, however you want to pronounce it. Of course they have the Duster, which is kind of a crossover SUV if you get it with four-wheel drive, but understated nonetheless. But they've kind of not gone down the form of making endless crossovers and SUVs, but now the Bigster's on its way. The concept objectively looked kind of good, but it's a big SUV, so fuck that. Again, speaking of SUVs that no one needs, Mercedes have also confirmed they're going to be bringing out a smaller version of the G-Wagon. It won't be called the G-Wagon, it'll have some other name. It's going to be based on the GLE platform, I think. There'll be a couple of petrol versions, I think, and there'll be electric versions, obviously. No pictures of it yet, but yeah, again, the G-Wagon, a car, especially the older versions, I have respect for, especially if you need an off-road vehicle. But again, they're just bought by people who want to pose in a car that's not as practical as other ones that are available and cost more money. There'll now be a smaller one, so people who want the image and don't have enough money can also play the image game. Other shit, electric vehicle news as well. I'm sure you saw this. The Volkswagen are going to bring out a model below the ID3. It's going to be polo-sized EV. Going to look quite conventional, look like a small hatchback with a combustion engine, but it won't have a combustion engine, it'll be electric. It's called the ID2 All. Yeah, whatever that means. So yeah, loads of bar the Westfield coming back and those MST 604s. Bit of a boring week for car news, but there you go. In case you didn't know, now you know. I apologise how terrible this podcast is, but as I told you, I'm going to stick with it. Some week I'm going to get a proper microphone. I might switch the day, because doing it on a Wednesday after work is probably not the best time to be doing it. But anyway, Formula One. So we had the second round of the season in Saudi Arabia and the Jeddah Street Circuit. Slightly more entertaining race than the opening round in Bahrain. It's a very, very fast pace street circuit, which it adds to the spectacle. Also, it was kind of aided by the fact that Charles Leclerc unfortunately had a engine penalty, so he dropped 10 places, so he was in the middle of the pack. Then, more interestingly, Max Verstappen, who was looking to cruise to an easy pole position, had a drive shaft problem at the beginning of Q2, which knocked him out in Q2, so he started 15th, so he was in the middle of the pack. So the mixed-up grid, added in at least, there was some guaranteed overtaking with those two coming through. Then the first kind of quarter of the race was interesting enough. Then there was a safety car, got going again, and then it kind of stagnated after that. Max came all the way through. He got through to second. His teammate Sergio Perez, who ended up on pole, he led from start to finish. Max got the fastest lap just near the end, and Perez couldn't match it, so that means Max is still leading the championship by a point with that fastest lap. The two Ferraris finished behind the two Mercedes, which is not great, because Mercedes are quite vocal about the woes of their car this season, and the fact that Ferrari finished behind them shows that Ferrari are probably in worse stead than we even thought. Obviously, it didn't help that Charles started back further, but he didn't start as far back as Max, and Max still absolutely ran away. Red Bull are just on another stratosphere. A few of the teams have Ferrari, McLaren, and I'm sure all the other ones they're all bringing upgrades to Australia, so maybe we'll see some changes. But I said this before last time, this is Red Bull's season to lose. And of course, they had that reliability issue there with Max, so anything can happen. But it's all about Alonso this year. I bought one of his hoodies. I'm fully on board with Fernando's my boy this year. His second podium out of two races. He started on the front row with Max's problem. He would have started third. No, what happened? Yeah, so he qualified. He qualified second outright, didn't he? Yeah, he did. He got done by Max eventually, but finished third. He got a 5-second penalty because he was slightly off his marks at the start of the race. He served it during the safety car. Then after the race, the FIA decided that he deserved a 10-second penalty because the rear jackman had touched the car just before the 5 seconds was up, they reckoned. So he was on the podium, then he wasn't on the podium, then George Russell was on the podium. George announced he was on the podium, celebrated it, and then it turns out Alonso, they appealed, and then it turns out everything was fine, so Alonso was back on the podium. Anyway, Alonso got another podium. So Alonso is a nice, comfortable third in the championship behind the two Red Bulls. So it's going to be one of those seasons like when Mercedes were very dominant, and as much as I'm a Ferrari fan, when Ferrari were dominant, the real championship is going to be from third backwards. The Red Bulls can run off into the distance. So whoever finishes third is going to be the defunct champion, or default champion, if you will. And I'm going to put my money on Fernando. We always got to hold out for. He's going to get a win. If Aston Martin can keep on top of things, he's going to get a win at some point. There will be a race where Red Bull. Well, maybe it's like there's never been a season where a team has completely done a whitewash. Closest we came was 1980. Was it 88? The 88 season when McLaren won, when Senna and Prost were battling together. They won every single race bar Monza that year, and Ferrari ended up taking a 1-2 with Berger and would it have been Berger and Lacey at that point? Yeah, Berger and Lacey. And it was the first. It was the only race that McLaren didn't win that year, and Ferrari were having a bit of a relatively dry-ish spell. So, but they, I think Prost DNF'd with a mechanical problem, I think, and Senna got tagged by, who was it? One of the backmarkers, his name escapes me now, got tagged and got spun out. I think he did finish the race, can't quite remember. But anyway, Ferrari took up the spoils, but it was the first race after the passing of Enzo as well, so it was a very bit of a fairy tale thing. Anyway, that was the closest a team came to having a whitewash. Ferrari never actually managed it in their dominance, and neither did Mercedes. So although Red Bull look incredibly strong, and I wouldn't rule them out having a clean a whitewash of a season, there will be an opportunity there somewhere, and hopefully it's Alonso who picks up the spoils. If it can't be the Ferraris, don't God not be wrong. I'm gonna say my blood runs red, but obviously it does because blood is red. But I'm a big Ferrari fan, but I'm also a big Alonso fan. So yeah, so that's the F1. There was a good battle for the last point actually, between Tsunoda and Kevin Magnussen. Fair play to Tsunoda. He really fought hard and did great to hold Magnussen back up until, like, I think, was it the last lap? Yeah, I think it was the last lap. But Magnussen finally got him and got the final point. Poor old Yuki was very frustrated, but he should feel proud in the performance. He raced really well. So yeah, what was it? So it was the two Red Bulls, Alonso, Stroll retired, and that's what brought out the safety car. Alonso, the two Mercedes, that's 4th, 5th. The two Ferraris, 6th, 7th. Who was 8th? I think it was Gasly. 8th, 9th, I can't remember. Anyway, 10th was Magnussen. I think 8th was Gasly, or was it Gasly 9th? Who was 8th then? I'm trying to work out who all these. Anyway, look it up. Next race in Australia, which used to be traditionally the opening round. Actually, speaking of Australia, the podcast, the F1 Beyond the Grid, Paul Stoddart is on it this week. And Paul Stoddart bought a stake of Minardi, controlling stake of Minardi in 2001. I think 2002 then was the first season he would have. It's a great listen anyway. But the first race that they ever did in Australia, 2002, and it was Mark Webber's first race. It was a big crash at the first corner, so it knocked a lot of people out. And Mark Webber was in 5th, being chased down by Mika Salo in the Toyota. So obviously Australia being Mark Webber's home Grand Prix. Paul Stoddart is Australian. And Minardi, if you don't know, were the minnows of the time. Very rarely scored a point. Very low budget team. It's what eventually became Toro Rosso and now AlphaTauri. But anyway, Mark Webber finished 5th in that race, scoring 2 points, which was in those days was a big deal. Just listen to the podcast. He's a great character, as Paul Stoddart. And yeah, so the next race is in Melbourne. Again, it's like we've had Bahrain. It's very hot, very coarse tarmac. Jeddah is a street circuit with a very forgiving, smooth tarmac. And then we're going to Australia, which is a very unique kind of track in itself. Its layout is not like anything else. And it's kind of a street circuit because it's in a park, which is public roads. So yeah, Red Bull are going to win. Yeah, that's in a couple of weeks' time. We also had Rally Mexico, which was won by Sebastian Ogier, who was in for he's not doing his full season, but he was running second to Esteban Lappi. But Lappi then had a pretty bad crash at the start of the second day. So Ogier took the lead and he never looked back after that. It was Ogier, Neuville and Evans, I think, on the podium. So even though Ogier isn't doing, well, he's done 2 of the 3 rounds so far, but even the fact that he's not doing a full season this year, he's actually leading the championship, which is interesting enough. I'm not sure exactly how many rounds he's doing. I wonder, could he win the championship without doing a full campaign? Be interesting to see. I didn't catch a whole lot of it. Actually, I must say the F1, I watched the F1 on my phone on mute because it was on a Mother's Day and I'd taken my mother out for dinner. And me and my siblings had taken our mother out for dinner. So I kind of had half an eye on it. I should probably go back and watch it, and maybe I'll garner more from it. But from what I watched, it was pretty shit. But yeah, I didn't get a whole lot of the coverage of them. I kept my eye on the rallying over the weekend, but Paddy's Day, Grand Slam, rugby, and then Sunday I went to a pop concert. Saying I had a lot on over the weekend, so I kept my finger on the pulse with the rally, but not as much as I would like to have. But it seemed like a good one. Rally Mexico, a proper gravel rally. Next round for the WRC, I think, is Rally Croatia, which is in mid-April. So we shall. I don't know who's entering that and who isn't entering it. But I'll update you with that. It's nearer the time. We also had the first round of the World Endurance Championship, the 12 Hours of Sebring on Saturday. Ferrari's first race in the top class in over 50 years. Obviously, they did run the 323 SP, but that was a privateer outfit back in the 90s. They also did ProDrive built the 550 LMs, but that wasn't in the top category. And then obviously they've been in GT GT Pro for the last few years, and they still are, obviously. But so as a factory outfit, this was their first outing in 50 years. Who else was there? We did a good raft of the manufacturers. There was Toyota, Ferrari, Peugeot, Porsche, Glickenhaus, and Cadillac. Ferrari managed to put it on pole in their first race, which was good to see. Anthony Fuoco put it on pole. They finished third, which isn't a bad turn of pace for the first race for Ferrari. Unsurprisingly, the first two positions were taken by the Toyotas, because Toyota have two seasons, I think, isn't it? Or at least a season in hand. They were the first, because they never left the Toyota after the change in regulations, so they went straight in. So they have a full season's worth of experience and data behind them in their hypercar. So everyone is playing catch up with the Toyotas, essentially. Toyota number 7, which was Kobayashi. Who was it? Kobayashi, Mike Conway, and Juan Marie Lopez. The number 7 car finished ahead of the number 8. We shall see. I do love the World Endurance Championship. It's great. I watch Le Mans every year. But the problem is, like, they do balance of performance where they try and they'll ballast cars and such to try and keep the performance equal amongst the category, or amongst the cars within the categories. The only problem is teams have often sandbagged in opening rounds in the WEC so that they have an advantage come Le Mans, because a lot of them will just Le Mans double points, but some manufacturers will sacrifice an entire season just to win Le Mans because it is the jewel in the crown. But the problem is, like Ferrari might have the quickest car for Le Mans, and that's why they didn't win. Now, probably not. But yeah, we shall see how it plays out. But yeah, it was. I only caught the highlights, but it seemed like a pretty good race. And then the next round of the WRC is the 6 hours Portimao, I think, which is in April. I might actually see if I could squeeze that in. It wouldn't be a bad thing to attend. But yeah, next one, I think it's the 17th of April for that. So I think also the same weekend as the next round of the WRC. But yeah, that's motorsport news for you. Sorry, this has just been very terrible. How many minutes I've been recording so far? Nearly half an hour. Very rambly, very terrible as always. So I'll finish off as I normally do. My classified find of the week. A 1990 Peugeot 309 1.3 GLX. Now it's got the 1.6 GTI alloys on it, the pepper pots, but it's a lovely kind of teal, I say you would call it, teal colour. It does it say what the mileage is? I don't think there's a mileage on it, but the thing is, it looks, and according to the ad, it's in absolutely fantastic condition. It doesn't say if it's taxed. I'm not sure it's taxed on CTs, but it's got 4 Hancock tires on it. If going by the pictures, it looks like it's in immaculate condition. Like it is absolutely perfection, inside and out. Now, obviously, an actual real world inspection would be advised to make sure, like, even as the original Clarion Peugeot head unit. 3950, it's in Dublin. Again, I have this saved. I really should go and look at this. This is a car that I would love to buy. I don't know why I tell you people these things. people, like there's anyone listening to this. But yeah, that's my classified find of the week. 1990 Peugeot 309 GLX 3950. It's up on Done Deal. It won't take you a long time to find that. There aren't many Peugeot 309s for sale in Ireland generally, so yeah, you'll find that no problem. Instead of a YouTube channel this week, I'm recommending a movie. It's called The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I think it's on Amazon, but I'm sure you can get it otherwise as well. It's one of the best comedy movies I've seen in a long time. It's Nicolas Cage playing a semi-fictionalized version of himself, and he gets involved with a wealthy superfan played by Pedro Pascal, and hilarity ensues. I won't tell you too much more than that. There's a car chase in it, with Nicolas Cage driving a V8 Defender, would you call them a cabriolet pickup, whatever you would call it, short wheelbase. I can't remember what his enemy who's chasing him. I can't remember what he's in. Some sort of black SUV thing. Can't quite remember what it was. It's kind of an homage to the crazy car chase scene from another Nicolas Cage movie, The Rock, when he is driving a yellow 355 Spider and being chased by Sean Connery in a Hummer, H1 Hummer, or it could be the other way around. It's been a long time since I've seen The Rock. Speaking of Sean Connery, when Burt Bacharach passed, I heard this joke. Burt Bacharach and Sean Connery were out for dinner, and Burt Bacharach goes to Sean Connery, Sean, who's your favourite composer? Schubert. No? Okay. And then for my song this week, it's a song called Biochemical Equation. And it is, again, it's not a brand new song. It's from a couple of years ago. But it is the RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan and MF Doom, two powerhouses of the hip-hop world. RZA being the abbot, as he is familiarly known, of the Wu-Tang Clan. He's like, if you haven't seen the Wu-Tang documentary, it'll explain it all. But RZA started, produced, he's the brains of the Wu-Tang Clan. And then MF Doom, who is your favourite rapper's favourite rapper, who sadly passed away last year. What was it, 2021? Anyway, he passed away not so long ago. But an unbelievable rapper. But they have a song together called Biochemical Equation. Check that one out. It's class. So yeah, I apologise for how terrible this is. If you have been listening, I love you very much. I'm going to see Blind Boy later on this evening, which will be interesting, in Vicar Street. It's always good fun. I went to see him before, and the good thing is you don't know who his guest is going to be, so it'll be interesting to see who his guest will be. Maybe it'll be Eddie Irvine, probably not. But yeah, until I speak to you again, be safe, be well. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.